Good evening, my dear friends. I welcome you all to the Hindu and the Businessline editorial analysis on July 11th, 2022. The first article to be discussed is about the Sri Lanka's anarchical system fueled by public wrath over the system of economic downturns which is Sri Lanka is undergoing now. So the economic downturn is just choking the masses, the poor and the public alike. So the economic situation in Sri Lanka is very much vulnerable, and the public have just out and out started the anarchical process of taking over the presidential palace and the burning of the prime minister's house, private house. So the belligerent attitude of the Sri Lankan administrators have shown that people have reacted violently to their belligerent attitude. This belligerent attitude of the administrators must have been shown out because the belligerent attitude serves no purpose now. The president has promised to resign, and the Prime Minister has also promised to resign. Now, Sri Lanka now expects an all-party administration. So the return to the Westminster administration is what Sri Lanka expects now. Under the Sri Lankan constitution, when the presidential office is vacant, the speaker or the prime minister can take over as the president. The prime minister has also has also expressed his willingness to resign, and therefore the speaker now can take over the Sri Lankan administration. The surreal scene of people thronging the presidential palace and just occupying the dining tables, the magnificent dining tables, the lawns, the swimming pools, and the four-post beds in the presidential palace shows a contempt for the top offices by the people. The public angst and the anger has overcome all the fears of the natural system of democracy and the natural system of government which is present day existing in Sri Lanka. The solution to be found is that it must be immediate replacement of the present system to save the people from the loss of confidence which is happening now. Sri Lanka proposes to bring an all-party government at the center. That is a good proposition which should happen immediately because time is running fast, and if this anarchy of the people boils over, the situation cannot be imagined. Already the aid from India and the International Monetary Fund have poured in, but it has served no purpose for the masses who are still in difficulties and economic recession. So the time is just flying. We have to find a systematic solution to Sri Lanka's problem. Then the Abe's assassination has thrown a very question mark on the psyche of the Japanese policies and politics. What happens is that Abe, post-war Japan, Abe was the key force. Shinzo Abe was the key force who pulled the country out of the turmoil, the post-war, by forging alliances with the United States and countering China in the region. Abenomics was introduced. The popular three arrows of economic theories was introduced in Japan. That is monetary easing and increased public spending and liberalization, popularly known as Abenomics, was introduced by Abe and therefore was steering Japan through with the help of US and the foreign help. It was trying to bring the country into some stability. In 2012, the second time when he took over, He introduced the military prominence. The defense systems were enhanced, the defense expenditure was enhanced. And a year after his taking over, in 2013, a massive earthquake shook Japan, and he was building post earthquake Japan with the help of US. He roped in US for defense ties also. So he was trying his level best to, though controversial, level best to pull the Japan out of the wrong side of the economy. He could pull Japan out of the recession, and his key focus was just spending excessively on defense, because defense was the key weak link in the Japanese political economy. So he filled the void by investing more and more on the defense economy. Then, moving on to the Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the traditional science of medicine in India. However, the present practices of Ayurveda, which has not seen an observationary aspect of Ayurveda and ignoring the observationary aspects of Ayurveda, from where the doctrines of medicine are evolving and going behind the belief, that is epistemial belief on Ayurveda theories. One example could be Ayurveda texts are several places very much practical. For example, the treatise on exercise. Exercise helps easing the body, then builds the healthy system of the body, then eases the stomach and improves the handsomeness. However, there are certain portions of the text which are very much redundant and very much out of date, which has to be researched and seen in the present pathological and physiological context. For example, in the treatise on internal working of the kidney, the Ayurveda texts are very much wrong, ignoring the kidney out of its context while prescribing medicines. However, the present physiological factors are not taken into consideration. Ayurveda grows only by observations rather than just believing as it is in the text. So, even P.S. Warrior, 100 years ago, had prescribed the revisiting of the scriptures on the epistemial measures which are prescribed in the text. However, the epistemial measures aim at believing, since it is coming from the sages, the in the yogic state, sages in the yogic state, so it has to be believed as it is, and the superficial belief has to be entertained. This is not true. This cannot rescue the Ayurveda from the competition or from the outdated theories which the Ayurveda is going under now. So what happens is that the three doshas prescribed by Ayurveda has to be very much practical in the present day physiological aspects, because it just believes that instead of researching and finding modern solutions to the diseases, it just believes whatever is written about the three doshas and the prescriptions and the treatment prescribed therein. So it has no relevance when the present day physiological factors are taken into consideration. No experiments are conducted. Just the belief, the mere belief that these treatises will just rescue the human beings out of their ailments is a greater peril which Ayurveda is going through now, and the Ministry of Ayush is just going on encouraging these practices instead of toiling hard to find to match the present day the medical theories or about the working of the human body and the well-being of the human beings. Ayurveda just copies, or the Ayurveda just tries to superimpose the ancient text with the present day theories. The superimposing is not going to work. Ayush ministry has to work hard to find some means and toil hard to experiment with the present day medical theories and finding its relevance, or imposing or mapping its relevance to the ancient Ayurveda text rather than epistemological theories, and the three doshas belief is carried on to the future generations and destroying them. The next is the privatization bill, the public sector banks privatization bill, which is going to be tabled in the monsoon session of the parliament. The monsoon session of the parliament is July to September. There are 3 sessions of parliament: monsoon session, budget session, and the summer session. So monsoon session of the parliament, the public sector banks privatization bill is going to be tabled. So the article analyzes the aspects of privatization of banks have to be thought about very carefully, because almost all the banks have a more than a trillion of rupees worth of balance sheets. Trillion means 1 lakh crores. So who is the private player who is ready to take over the public sector banks having such huge crores of rupees of worth of balance sheets is the first question. 1969 saw the banks were taken over by the government of India and the nationalization of banks. It was followed by the 1980s nationalization of further several banks, and now many banks are then again integrated into 12 banks. So these huge banks are having, some banks, especially the State Bank of India, is having the market value worth its book values. However, certain banks like Indian Bank are having the assets just worth of 0.3 or 30% or 70% of their book values. So the value that government is going to get from the private sector is not much, except the State Bank of India. The other banks are valued very less. However, the experiments on privatization has succeeded with the ICICI Bank, the City Union Bank, and so on. However, what can be seen is that some private players want a government participation. However, in the banking sector, the IDBI's proposal was accepted by one private player on the condition that LIC remains the investor in the bank. So this banking plus insurance, that is bank assurance. The bank assurance is the assurance which the private player needed for taking over the IDBI. So what these things show is that the privatization has to be only when the government retains some share in the banks, at least 26% of the share in the public sector banks, so that the public trust on the banking system remains. Otherwise, what happens is that the public are just believing that the government can bail them out. So the bailing out process of the government is the assurance which the public maintains on the hopes of while investing in or depositing in a bank. So I have come to the conclusion of today's analysis of the Hindu and the Businessline. Meet you tomorrow with some more topics analysis, and then till then, bye, take care, good night.